What exactly happened over the weekend to Shedeur Sanders, Mr. Ungar?
Better question. What the heck are the Cleveland Browns doing?
Whoa.
We're going to draft a quarterback in the third round, Dylan Gabriel. Oh, we're going to come back and draft another quarterback in the fifth round. Huh? But in terms of Shedeur Sanders, Fitz, I don't care what you say. This has Jimmy Haslam's name written all over it. I mean, you saw when they cut to Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they did not look exciting and high-fiving each other and hugging and all that. They just kind of sat there like this.
It was the most saddest war room. I've seen some bad war rooms. You can tell when teams don't necessarily love their picks. That was we were forced into this pick.
Yep. By the one and only Jerry Jones of the AFC, Jimmy Haslam. I don't care. I am not holding back on this. He is the Jerry Jones of the AFC.
Our friend Grandizer, the Browns are showing how to properly tank before camp even begins. Listen, I'll get into the Browns more when we do our NFL draft winners and losers. I want to talk about specifically about Shedeur Sanders real quick.
Yes.
So, Josh, in last week's mock draft right here on Championship Rings, you, along with when we published it on Voltage Live last week, you had predicted Shedeur Sanders to go number 2 overall to the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, you were not the only one very high on Shedeur Sanders. A very particular ESPN analyst who we all know was raving and ranting about Shedeur Sanders for 3 days. Shedeur Sanders, though, by the mock consensus, was anywhere from number 2, like you had said, to potentially number 9 to the Saints, to potentially number 21 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the Steelers did not take him and went with a defensive tackle out of Oregon, of all places, at Derek Armand at number 21 overall, then you started looking, okay, is anybody going to get him? And by the way, the Giants moved up ahead of Pittsburgh and took that bum, in my opinion, known as Jackson Dart from Ole Miss.
No, they didn't move in front of Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh was at 21, and they came in and traded in at number 25.
Oh, you're right. Okay, my apologies for that. So they go in, they get Jackson Dart. Okay, second round comes about. Because of the trade, which we're going to talk about, the Browns move down 3 spots. They get the extra second-round pick from Jacksonville. They take the linebacker out of UCLA and Swevenger, and then they take Quinyon Junkins, the running back out of Ohio State. And at that point, you're sitting there going, okay, something's fishy. Then New Orleans takes the Shiloh kid, the white quarterback out of Louisville, who a lot of people have compared to the next Brandon Wheaton. And you're going, okay, Shedeur is probably going to drop to the 3rd round. Then Saturday, all the reports came out, and it all makes sense. I'm sorry for those of you in the media like Stephen A. Smith who are out here saying Shedeur Sanders was blackballed and this was about race. No, it wasn't. If it was about race, Cam Ward would have not been the number 1 overall pick in the draft. It was about race. Jalen Milroe would have not gone before Shedeur Sanders. This was not about race at all. This was about that Shedeur Sanders.
Furthermore, I know it happened a few seasons ago, but if this was about race, I don't think Jalen Hurts would have gone in the 2nd round to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, I know that draft was in the past, but it still applies here.
Good point.
But to piggyback off what you were saying, I think this has everything to do with the media hyping him up and the fact that, oh, wait, who's his dad? Oh, that's right. Pro Football Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive backs in NFL history.
Dare I say the greatest? I think you can easily make that argument. He was the most impactful defensive back of all time in Deion Sanders. He won those back-to-back Super Bowl championships, obviously, with San Francisco and Dallas, as we know. And he famously went out and didn't go to every interview because he was so talented. Deion did overhype Shedeur, But Shedeur Sanders made a critical mistake, and this is what came out Saturday morning, that he bombed, and I mean completely bombed, the interview with the New York Giants. Apparently, he showed up late to the interview. He was cocky to Brian Dable, and there was a moment where, when these teams are at the combine and they get their one-on-one meetings with these players, oftentimes for quarterbacks, I guess Albert Breer had this in an article for Sports Illustrated. What the teams and the coaches will do is they'll give a player a playbook. They'll tell them study the playbook. They come back the next day and they will purposely make a small error in a play name or a play design or something in a play that a smart quarterback will be able to tell that study the playbook. Oh, okay, that's not correct. Okay, what's wrong about this play that we're showing you? Shedeur Sanders apparently did not get what was incorrect on the play that Brian Dable showed him. And when Brian Dable called him out about it, Shedeur Sanders had the biggest attitude of all time about it. And that made rounds throughout the league. And he was treating himself like this all-world franchise game-changing quarterback, the way Mel Kiper Jr. put him up on a pedestal.
Oh, my God. That was so annoying all weekend.
So there was that. When in reality, and Josh, so in reality, like even guys like you who thought he was number 2 overall, if you take a guy number 2 overall, you believe he's this all-world quarterback. Maybe not as good as Cam Ward, but pretty good up there. I add about a late first-round grade on him. But the league viewed him as a backup quarterback, and when you are a backup quarterback, who do you think about when you think about the typical great backup quarterbacks in this league? Nick Foles, Joe Flacco, Alex Smith, Chase Daniel, veteran guys who really, Matt Moore, remember him for a long time, back and forth.
You got to put Kirk Cousins in that discussion now.
Yeah. Guys who are veterans, but who work hard, who are good in the room, who are good mentors. Not a guy like a Cam Newton or a Russell Wilson. That's been the whole concern about Russell Wilson, is where he's going to go because of his brand. He can't be a backup quarterback. That, to me, is the same thing with Shedeur Sanders, which is why he dropped all the way to the 5th round, and why Jimmy Haslam, I 1,000% agree with you. I don't care what anybody says. Jimmy Haslam said, you know what? We're in the 5th round. And you know what makes, to me, even more convincing that it was Jimmy Haslam who made that pick that nobody else is talking about? That was not the Browns' original draft spot that they were drafting it. They moved up ahead of my Philadelphia Eagles 1 spot, because the interesting report out there that Rapid Sheet had on day 3 of the draft was if he was available, there was a possibility my Eagles could draft him. Whether it was a smoke screen or not, I don't know what the Browns believed it, but they moved ahead of us 15 spots to grab the guy, and yeah.
And they trade up with the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think that's a coincidence either. I know Seattle had just drafted Jalen Milroe, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they traded up with Seattle. I just want to put that out there. I'm not suggesting.
Why do you say that? Why Seattle? I'm interested. Do you think that they would have done what the Browns did, take 2 quarterbacks?
Possibly, yeah. I do. I think there's a possibility Seattle might have done it. So
here's my issue with the taking. My issue is not with taking 2 quarterbacks. My dad always said, rest in peace, his soul. He always said his draft philosophy was draft 8 quarterbacks until you find one. We got to find a freaking quarterback. The issue is, if you flip the 2 picks, I would have been okay with it. Dylan Gabriel is not a 3rd-round quarterback.
Yes, but here's the thing. When they drafted Dylan Gabriel, you could actually, when you looked at the war room, you actually saw like excitement. Like they actually wanted Dylan Gabriel. Do I agree with you that he's not a third round quarterback? Yes. But again, when they showed the war room, Like Andrew Barry, you could tell was excited about it. Kevin Stefanski, you could tell was excited about it. There was not that same reaction when they drafted Shedeur. And here's what I will say. Did I especially love Shedeur? No. But again, the reason I had him going number 2 in our mock draft last week and the one we put out on Voltage Live is because that's the Browns' history. They drafted Johnny Manziel. They drafted Baker Mayfield. Again, I get it. Shedeur does not have the same off-the-field issues that those two had.
You know what? I actually am going to stake back on my original case because I think he has more Johnny Manziel in him than I originally realized. I did the only thing I liked about Shedeur the whole weekend is when he was asked about Jeff Ulbricht's kid, leaking out that he was the one that fake called him and prank called him. By the way, this happens to way more people. What happened to Cooper DeJean last year? No one cares about it. They only care about it because it's Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders. I'm Mel Kiper. I talk about Shedeur Sanders 3 days straight. But anyway, the way he responded to that, and he basically said, hey, listen, every kid makes a mistake. No big deal. He could have very easily said, that kid's a punk. Go F himself. It was not right. All he said was, kids make mistakes. That I like. And I think somebody did get in his ear. Not Thursday night, but I thought Friday night going into Saturday morning, somebody got in his ear and said, Shedeur, be on your best behavior today.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there was a chance he was going to go undrafted. Somebody was going to take him.
The crazy thing is, this may be a little thing, and I think it did turn some teams off because it did turn me off. The legendary thing. You call yourself a legend before you even get into the NFL. It's wrong. NFL Hall of Famers talk about this all the time. I don't know if you know this, Josh. I only know it because Shannon Sharp talked about it once or twice before when he was on TV on Undisputed. The day before the NFL Hall of Fame, there is a luncheon where the new Hall of Famers sit in and they listen to speeches by current NFL Hall of Famers. Those Hall of Famers going into the Hall of Fame that year are not allowed to say a word during that luncheon. They are to sit, they are to listen to fellow NFL Hall of Famers talk about how lucky they are, the 0.1%, however much it is, to be in the NFL Hall of Fame, because the NFL is a brotherhood. The NFL is different. And if you disrespect that by calling yourself a legend before you even into this league, I do think that turns some teams away from Shedeur.
So I'm assuming, I don't know if we'll get into this, but did you hear that Abdul Carter tried to get Lawrence
Taylor's number, and Lawrence Taylor told him basically piss off.
Yes. And I heard that, and I'm like, Lawrence Taylor is arguably the greatest defensive player in the history of the NFL.
Again, him at his position, he's certainly number one. You can make a case. The two guys we were talking about earlier, Deion and Lawrence, are the two best defensive players in the history of the sport.
I know we're talking about Shedeur Sanders, but for Abdul Carter to have the audacity to even ask, like, can I wear number?
Again, it does relate. The difference is Abdul Carter is so productive, nobody cares. Shedeur Sanders, this is the thing that everybody missed. I'm sorry, Mel Kiper Jr. I'm sorry, Skip Bayless, the two people that love Shedeur Sanders. He was not a good NFL quarterback. And I don't care what you say about he was running for his life at Colorado. Yes, he was. But you know what? He went 13-12 at Colorado in that terrible conference and was 4-8 year one. He was not that great of a quarterback.
Yeah, I don't get why Colorado retired his jersey. That
was the other thing. They retired not only his jersey, but Travis Hunter's jersey.
Travis Hunter, I believe, deserves that after what he did, winning Heisman Trophy as both a wide receiver and cornerback and he won countless awards. I was okay with Travis Hunter getting his jersey retired at Colorado.
I agree with you. I don't know about right away. I think it's pretty insane. You get your jersey retired the minute, and you're not even in the NFL yet. But regardless, the Shedeur thing, something's off about it.
Yeah. And it totally makes sense that the Browns drafted him because they don't seem to care. Hell, they traded for a quarterback who had a bunch of allegations against him. And what did they do? Oh, here's a fully guaranteed contract. Oh, you have off the field issues? Okay, we're going to draft you number one overall.
They're very ever since Andrew Berry taken over as GM, Andrew Berry is very, you mentioned Jimmy Haslam and Jerry Jones. Andrew Berry in that regard is very Jerry Jones. Like, remember Perion Winfrey, the defensive tackle who got into all those issues and didn't work out? Like, the Browns do take chances in the Berry era on people with character issues.
That part is true. Like, if we drafted, to go back to the whole Abdul Carter, like Shedeur conversation we were just having, it would be like if we drafted a left tackle and they went up and said, hey, Joe Thomas, can I wear number 73? Dude, you haven't done anything in the NFL yet.
But the difference is again, the consensus is Abdul Carter is going to be a very good player. At worst, he's going to be a multi-time Pro Bowler. But I still think it was wrong for him for one to wear 56. Let's get into the biggest losers and winners of the NFL draft. Because, Josh, I'll be honest with you. Depending on which way you look at it, I'll be honest, the Browns are both. This was the strangest, I will say it till the day I die. No matter how it works out, at the time when the draft ended on Saturday night, 7 o'clock, whatever time it was, this was the strangest draft from a football team I can ever remember in my life. First of all, they trade down from 2 to 5. They get the extra first-round pick from Jacksonville. Jacksonville moves up to get Travis Hunter. Okay, you know my feelings on Travis Hunter. I don't know how good he's going to be. If he turns out to be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase and you traded away a generational talent, so be it. I like Mason Graham as a player. I think he's going to be a very good player, including Travis Hunter. He was my second highest rated defensive player on the board, right behind Abdul Carter. I just didn't know if he was worth trading back for and picking up that player. He's got to be a multi-year pro right next to Myles Garrett for years to come for that to be worth it. The best part about that trade for me is they get the extra first-round pick for next year, which I thought they were going to use for ammo on a quarterback. I'll get to that in a minute. The second-round picks. I know JOK is injured. I did a lot of homework on this draft. You know this. Over the last month, I've gone through, I've watched tape, I've done multiple mock drafts, I've done all my studying. I never heard of that Carson Swevenger kid, the white linebacker they drafted out of UCLA. Not necessarily in love with that pick. Me personally, I like Travion Henderson more than Quinyon Junkins, so I would have rather preferred them to take Henderson. But I absolutely loved the Dylan Sampson pick in the 4th round because I had him graded higher than Quinyon Junkins on my board. I also think that absolutely signals the end of the Nick Chubb era.
I was just sorry for cutting you off, but I was just going to jump in on that. It's interesting to me that the Browns not only took one running back in Quinyon Junkins, but 2 in Dylan Sampson.
They took 2 quarterbacks who, by the way, I've already said, I think Dylan Gabriel's a fucking bum. I think he's a bust. I think he's a smaller, poor man's version of Tua. I don't think he's going to work in the NFL at all. But they took 2 quarterbacks. They took 2 running backs. And nobody's talking about, they didn't take one single offensive lineman. Like, how do you not at least take one offensive lineman? I know they just signed, what's his name, Deontay Johnson today. Whoop-de-freaking-do. He quit on 2 teams last year. That was their upgraded receiver. They don't have a number 1 receiver, and they don't have an offensive lineman. If they're going to use those 2 first-round picks on those guys next year? Maybe. But don't you usually use 2 first-round picks as ammo to go get a freaking quarterback? And yet here you are drafting 2 quarterbacks in a bad quarterback draft class. I don't get it, man.
I really don't. The Browns had one of the most confusing drafts I've ever seen. So right now, I can't definitively say whether they're a winner or a loser. I understand what you are saying, though, by putting them into both categories. The team, I think.
Here's the thing. Can I clarify that real quick?
Yes.
If Shedeur is the quarterback, which, by the way, for the record, if Shedeur Sanders is as good of a quarterback as everybody mocked him to be, I'm on record right now. Shedeur Sanders should be the week 1 starter for the Cleveland Browns because he should be better than Kenny Pickett. He will be better than Dylan Gabriel. And I'm sorry for all you Browns fans, like our man Fitz last week. That's when I flipped out on Fitz when he said, the vibes are back because we got Joe Flacco. You're talking about vibes? What are you trying to do? Win 4 games or trying to win the Super Bowl? Let me tell you when you can start talking about vibes. When you're 40-9 beating the ass of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. That's when you start talking about vibes. So
Hey, Dad, what's a Super Bowl? I don't know, son. We're Browns fans.
Yeah, really. So if Shedeur Sanders is as good as the media says he was, he should be the starter week 1. And if he's as good as the Browns did by drafting him in the 5th round, that's a win. If he's a bust and Dylan Gabriel can't play, even if Mason Graham is a Hall of Famer, and even if, Junkins and Dylan Sampson are really good, it will be a waste of a draft.
So, whether this was the owners conspiring or acting in collusion against Shedeur Sanders, we didn't quite get into that. But I'll address it here. Maybe that's part of it that I don't think we really got into, to go back to the whole Shedeur stuff, is that perhaps it was more so that the owners kind of wanted to put Shedeur and Dion, for that matter, in their place. Because with Shedeur, it's cameras, paparazzi, social media, all this and that. And, of course, you're getting Dion. And the owners, I think, were trying to say, no, you don't run this. We do. And whether they're going to come out and say it or not, I wholeheartedly believe that was part of it. They were trying to, I don't want to say blackball Shedeur, but almost put him in his place. And if the Browns want to send a direct message, they won't put Shedeur as the starting quarterback week 1. They'll have him start later.
By the way, guys, this is insane to me. Did you see who has the best odds to start week 1 for the Browns?
No.
Kenny bleeping Pickett. I think that's insane. I personally, to be honest with you, and somebody, I think it was Joe Quad or Daniel Jeremiah, one of them on the NFL Network brought this up. You know what they should do? They should tell Joe Flacco, Joe, you know the system, you don't need any reps. You are going to be our backup quarterback. You want the young 3 kids, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur, battle it out for essentially QB1. And if I know the NFL just changed the hard knocks rules. I don't know if the Browns are eligible, but if they are, sign me up, because this is the only interesting preseason team in the NFL in the last decade.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do think there's a chance the Browns could want to send that message and be like, yes, we took you in the 5th round, but we're not going to start you right away. You have to learn your lesson. But to go back to this, sorry for going off on that tangent there, but I felt like it needed to be said. One of my biggest winners, Drake May.
I wholeheartedly agree.
If you do not get this right now, Drake May, I don't know what to tell you. The Patriots knocked this draft right out of the park. They got receivers. They got offensive line help. Which I told you they were going to go with the offensive lineman, 4th overall, Will Campbell. I told you that.
Yeah, I said that they were. Yeah, I said that they were going to do. Once Abdul Carter was off the board, everybody knew it. The only reason why I said they wouldn't go the offensive lineman is if Carter was still there.
Fair enough, but the Patriots, I gotta say they're the top winner of this draft. I have to. Some other honorable mentions I would put in there. I think Atlanta did a really solid job.
I disagree with that. What was that? Trade a first-round pick next year for James Pierce. I thought Atlanta had a horrible draft, to be honest with you. Yeah. Like Atlanta, they doubled down on pass rusher. Both those kids have to hit for their draft to be good. They have to. The Giants didn't have to give him a first-round pick to go get Jackson Dart. Atlanta gave him a first-round pick next year in a better draft for a pass rusher who some people thought could go in the 2nd round.
Atlanta, I think, felt the urgency. Okay, so Atlanta, not as much. What did you think about Tampa Bay? Because I think what they did spoke loudly about their concerns in terms of Chris Godwin.
Yeah,
they go out and draft Ibuka out of Ohio State. I think they're continuing to put pieces around Baker Mayfield, and they sense that they're not. I don't think they're going to loosen their grip on the NFC South. Although I do think they have a new challenger in the Carolina Panthers.
I love what the Panthers did. Ted McMillan, I love that pick.
That was one of the more surprising picks, I got to admit.
See, to be honest with you, it wasn't. Because I like Ted. I thought, between him and Tyler Warren, I thought that they were the 2 best pass catchers in this draft.
So just to go back to what I was saying last week, the reason I thought Carolina would go with Tyler Warren is because, like I said, go back and watch Penn State games this season. When Drew Aller was in trouble, he was like, "Where's Tyler Warren?" "Oh, there he is. First down." And I thought the same thing about Bryce Young, where...
Can I counter that, though? Bryce Young is a small quarterback. We all know that by NFL standards. Now he has 2 giant wide receivers, and Xavier Legette, whose comp was A.J. Brown going out of college at the same school of Ole Miss. And now Ted McMillan, whose comp is new Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf. So if you theoretically have A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf on either side, that's going to help a small quarterback see more outside the numbers than it is inside the numbers over the heads of those giant offensive linemen.
It just concerns me that, he doesn't have his security blanket where if he gets flushed out of the pocket and he needs to make a quick pass. That's not to diminish what Ted McMillan can do. I'm not trying to say it was a bad pick or anything like that. I just thought, that I'm not saying Bryce Young's going to become Patrick Mahomes, but just hear me out. When Patrick Mahomes has been in trouble, he's gone to Travis Kelce. Not trying to compare Tyler Warren to Travis Kelce.
I think he could be Travis Kelce. I love that value for the Colts at 14, by the way. Absolutely loved it.
Do you understand what I'm saying now?
I do, but I think Carolina, I would have gone with the receiver over the tight end there personally myself, because I thought there was more value in tight ends later on in this draft than there was receivers.
Okay, so we both agree New England and Carolina were winners in this draft. I'm not sure where to put the Houston Texans. Do they know there are other teams or other colleges to draft from besides Iowa State?
You know what? I liked it. I didn't mind those picks. They also got a lineman as well. There's a team that you have not mentioned yet that I'm surprised you haven't. I absolutely love, as much the New England Patriots, what Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears did. They said, you know what? Since 1985, all we've done is defense, defense, defense. And Ben Johnson said, Fuck that. We're going tight end. We're going Luther Burden, who had a first-round grade on him in the second round, whose comp is DJ Moore. We're going offensive lineman in the third round. We are giving Caleb Williams all the support he needs. That was the theme to me of this draft. If you have a young quarterback, even Tennessee with Cam Ward, they gave him weapons, they gave him protection later on in the draft. Tennessee, New England, Chicago, supporting your young quarterback was a big theme of this draft.
Let's see. Grandizer says, I heard that the Arizona Cardinals got an A from 1 or 2.
Oh, okay. No, actually, Grandizer, I agree with that. And here's why. I love their first 2 picks, Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. I thought they absolutely knocked it out of the park with those 2 picks because I think Jonathan Gannon is trying to rebuild what he had in Philly.
Yeah, he definitely is. I don't know if they got enough around Kyler though.
Well, they got Marvin Harrison, they got Trey McBride, they got Michael Wilson, who I really like as a tall, lengthy receiver.
I meant in terms of the offensive line because we've seen how Kyler likes to run around and he's gotten injured multiple times since he's come into the league.
Okay. Grandizer asked this. I don't know if you want to take this or if you want me to take it first about the Chargers and Raider draft.
Okay. With the Chargers, I was surprised they went running back in the first round. I did not see them being the team that took Hampton. I thought for sure Denver would do it. But in terms of the overall draft for the Chargers, I give it like a B-. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was terrible either. So I would go B-.
So they went out, they got Trey Ayers in the second round, the receiver out of Ole Miss. Then they went with a bunch of linemen. Jarek Ardwell, the defensive lineman out of Oregon, Ed Kennard out of South Carolina. They did get a tight end later in the draft, which that was a little bit of a surprise for me that they did not go with the tight end. Amarian Hampton, I thought, was a very good player. They needed a running back because of the fact that Najee Harris was their only other running back on the roster. Gus Edwards is gone. J.K. Dobbins is still in free agency. So I don't mind that pick because Jim Harbaugh, we know how much he loves to run the football, and it was very much Charger-esque. I thought the Raiders had an A-plus draft. I thought the Raiders absolutely knocked it out of the park with not only Ashton Gentry, who is absolutely going to carry that offense under Pete Carroll, the ability to run the football there for the Raiders. But then they went out and they got Jack Beck, who's a wide receiver out of TCU, who is a transfer with LSU, as I mentioned, who played alongside Malik Neighbors, put up really good numbers there. Darian Porter, the defensive back, is a very physical defensive back. Then they went out, they upgraded their offensive line, in my opinion, with Caleb Rogers, the guard, Charles Grant, the tackle. So they, in my opinion, checked a lot of boxes. And between the AFC West and the AFC West and the NFC North, those 2 divisions are going to be absolutely insane.
Remind me, did the Raiders draft a quarterback at all?
They did not, no. So they're going with Geno, as far as I remember.
So that's interesting because, we know.
No, they did. I'm sorry, my bad. In the 6th round, they drafted Tommy Millett out of Montana State.
Oh, okay. It's interesting that a lot of these teams waited to draft a quarterback.
Well, not really, because this wasn't a quarterback year. I mean, even Philadelphia went quarterback. We picked up Kyle McCord as a backup to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking about it, outside of Arch Manning, who else is there really in next year?
And by the way, Arch Manning is not a sure thing to go in next year's draft, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's all this talk about how great this quarterback class is next year, and I don't think we know the answer to that right now. I do want to say this. There was only one, because I think it's really hard to blow the draft. Everybody's going to get good players. Everybody's going to get bad players. By the way, shout out to my Philadelphia Eagles again, stealing Jahad Campbell at number 31. Another Alabama defensive player. It's death taxes and the Eagles taking SEC defensive players.
They might as, you know how they have that word marked where it says Eagles? They might as well change the A to an Alabama logo and change the G to a Georgia logo.
I wanted to say, Josh, there was only one draft out of every 32 teams that I completely did not understand.
Wait, can I guess it? The Buffalo Bills.
You're in the same division.
The Jets?
No, the Dolphins. I did not understand the Dolphins draft at all. They drafted 4 defensive tackles when they had no secondary. They barely addressed the offensive line. There's thoughts that they could be moving off Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey. They didn't go get a corner to late in the draft. Like, they did not address, in my opinion, any of their needs. And they reached on their first 2 picks. They went out. Kenneth Grant is a late first-round pick, maybe even an early second-round pick. And then they traded up 15 spots. I get offensive linemen's important, but they traded up 15 spots in the second round for a guard I never heard of. So that I did not understand at all.
Yeah. Buffalo's draft was also confusing, I have to admit. Like, why are you drafting so many defensive players? Josh Allen needs to, throw the ball to people. And I understand Brandon going on the tangent that he did. You did hear about that, right?
Yeah, I did. And their philosophy, I think, is, listen, in order to beat Patrick Mahomes, we're going to have to stop him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The Ravens were an interesting draft. They go with
their first 2 picks, they absolutely nailed.
Yes.
And that's all that matters to me. They got Starks, the safety out of Georgia, who I loved, and then Mike Green fell in the second round because apparently some sexual assault cases. I don't know. I think he's going to be a very productive player. When do the Ravens not have a good draft?
That part is true. What did you think of the Packers draft? Because for the first time since 2002, they drafted a wide receiver.
They did, but no, Grandizer. Grant was not great value at 13. Look it up. It was one of the worst picks in the first round. I completely disagree with you. Anyway, they drafted the wrong receiver, in my opinion. Golden is the same style as Reed, as Watson, as Dobbs. Very similar, 5'11", quick, speedy guy. Good, not great hands. The kid they drafted, I forget his name here, the 6'4" kid that they drafted in the third round, that's who they needed to go get. The Wildcat type receiver, Savion Williams out of TCU. That's the type of guy. They needed another game-changing pick to go out there to get more height, more speed. They didn't need all of the same receivers.
I don't even remember who the guard is.
Grandizer, there was only one real guard in this draft, and that was Tyler, the kid that Dallas got, who was a good pick, but yet Dallas needed receivers, and they didn't draft one, so who knows there.
What did you think of the Commanders draft? Because I kind of liked it.
I loved their second round pick in Amos, the corner. I thought he should have gone in the first round, so I was mad at the first round pick because I didn't understand taking a tackle there. Because to me, their offensive line could use an upgrade, yes, but I didn't think he was worth the value there. I thought they needed to get a defensive tackle or another defensive back.
I actually thought they should have drafted another running back. Because I know that you have Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson there, but Austin Eckler is more of a hybrid player. So you don't quite have that thunder and lightning. So I thought Washington, when in the later rounds of the draft, like rounds like 4 to 7 would go with a running back.